Imagine someone in your group stops moving. It's 80,000 years ago. No hospital, no ambulance, no system designed to absorb this moment and process it for you. Just a body. Someone you knew. Someone who was here yesterday and is not here now. Framework for what just happened. Here's the thing nobody asks about ancient humans. We talk endlessly about how they hunted, how they survived brutal winters, how they kept children alive against impossible odds. But we almost never ask what happened when survival failed, what they did with the body, whether any of it meant anything to them at all. The real, archaeologically verified answer is one of the most quietly extraordinary things about our species, and we're going to go through it today. Let's start with the question that sounds almost offensive to ask. Did ancient humans even care when someone died? Scientists can't just assume yes, they need evidence. And for a long time, the working assumption was actually the opposite, that early humans treated death the way most animals do. You move on. The group continues. Grief, if it existed at all, was brief and functional. That assumption turned out to be completely wrong. In a cave called Shanidar, in what is now northern Iraq, archaeologists uncovered a Neanderthal, not Homo sapiens, a Neanderthal, buried roughly 65,000 years ago. Intentional burial alone was significant. It means someone made a deliberate choice about what to do with the body rather than leaving it where it fell. But what stopped researchers cold was the pollen. Clustered around the skeleton, in patterns suggesting deliberate placement, was ancient pollen from at least 8 species of flowering plants. Hyacinth, grape hyacinth, yarrow, several with medicinal properties still used in the region today. There's ongoing academic debate about whether that pollen arrived naturally, a burrowing rodent, wind, coincidence. Science is careful that way. But Shanidar wasn't alone. At Sungir in Russia 34,000 years ago, archaeologists found 2 children buried head-to-head, their bodies covered in thousands of hand-carved ivory beads. The estimated labor to produce those beads, somewhere around 10,000 hours. For children already dead. For a burial no living person would ever see again. Someone decided the right way to send these children into whatever came next was to make them beautiful. Not for survival, not for warmth, for meaning. That is not an animal behavior. That is grief. That is love. That is a species trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Because ancient humans didn't just bury their dead. They appear to have developed something far more complex around death. Something that looks, unmistakably, like ritual.
The evidence is everywhere, once you know what to look for. Red ochre, an iron-rich pigment, appears at burial sites across multiple continents spanning hundreds of thousands of years. It was applied to bodies, to grave goods, to the walls of burial spaces. In cultures separated by oceans and millennia, red was the color of death, or perhaps of life after death. We can't know exactly what it meant, but the fact that it meant something, consistently, across vast distances and enormous spans of time, tells us something crucial. Ancient humans had beliefs about what death was, and that matters enormously, because belief requires abstract thinking. It requires the ability to imagine something you cannot see or touch, an afterlife, a spirit, a continuation of the person beyond the body. That kind of thinking, the ability to conceive of the invisible, is the same cognitive machinery that produces language, art, and eventually civilization itself. Death, it turns out, may have been one of the first truly abstract problems our ancestors tried to solve. Not physically, philosophically. Now, here's the part nobody talks about. It wasn't just the dead that ancient burial practices reveal things about. It's the living. Archaeologists studying burial sites have found something that changes the picture entirely. People with severe disabilities, individuals who could not have fed themselves, could not have hunted, could not have contributed to group survival in any conventional sense, buried with the same care, the same deliberateness. At a site in Vietnam dating to around 4,000 years ago, researchers found the remains of a young man with a condition that had left him severely physically impaired from early childhood. He would have required constant care for years. And yet, he was buried with care. He was part of the group. He was mourned. This is not a species that only valued the useful. This is a species that valued people. And the willingness to carry members who couldn't carry themselves, to feed people who couldn't feed the group, to mourn people whose contribution was simply being known and loved. That is not a survival strategy. That is a moral one. Here's what the full picture looks like when you step back. Ancient humans feared death. They tried to prepare for it, to honor it, to give it meaning. They developed rituals that bound communities together in the face of loss. They imagined worlds beyond this one. They grieved so visibly that the evidence survived 65,000 years and still communicates something to us today. And maybe that's the most striking part, that you can look at a 34,000-year-old child's grave covered in carefully made beads and feel something. Because the people who made that grave felt the same thing you would feel. The love is legible across the entire span of human history. We didn't learn to care about death recently. We didn't develop grief as a side effect of civilization. It was there at the very beginning, carved into the bone, buried in the earth, painted in red across cave walls in the dark. Death is what made us ask the first hard questions, and the act of asking them, of refusing to let a body just be a body, of insisting that this person mattered, that their passing deserved ceremony and color and 10,000 hours of someone's hands. That impulse is the same one that eventually produced philosophy, religion, art, and every attempt humans have ever made to find meaning in a world that doesn't offer it automatically. Ancient humans dealt with death the same way we do. Badly. Beautifully. Together.